welcome to the first edition of the Reading and Discussion Group for Discussing Men. And that is aimed for professionals who work with men and boys and anyone who wants to stay on top of the current research, policy trends, and conversations about masculinities. Frankly, the discussion group is a fantastic excuse to do more reading. And many of our busy lives, it is difficult to carve out the time somewhere to have a minute to actually do the reading that we should be doing. So I thought that it would be an excellent opportunity for us to just to motivate ourselves to do that, to do more reading, to do some critical reflection and peer learning on those important topics. So the aim is simple. We want to build shared expertise, deepen our understanding, and support each other in professional development in this environment that is changing so quickly right now. So just a disclaimer before we start, all the sessions are recorded in full and made publicly available, and the short excerpts from those sessions will be used for social media and outreach. So you will be appearing in the recording, and I ask you also to keep your cameras on. So by choosing to join, you confirm that you consent to this, to being recorded, and this recording to be used for educational and advocacy purposes. And there's full terms of participation on our website that is linked in the event. So if you have any doubts, please have a look. And if you are joining us on the live stream, then if you'd like to participate as well by asking some questions in the chat, you should be able to do that. Feel free to simply type in a question and we'll bring it up in the discussion. Okay, so the session is hosted by myself, Dr. Simon Fokt from PathForge, and Aleks Dimitrijevic from Men Against Violence. And we're both members of the MenEngage Europe Steering Committee, and the whole session is held in collaboration with the MenEngage Alliance. So now, before we start, I thought it would be really nice if we all had a chance to introduce ourselves. And I have this funny rule that I always apply for discussion groups to kind of keep things quick and so it doesn't descend into too much detail, which is that if you want to introduce yourself, please take a deep breath. And then you have as much time to introduce yourself as long your breath lasts. So as soon as you run out of breath, you're finished introducing yourself. All right. So I will start. I'm Dr. Simon Fokt. I'm a philosopher. I work at a applied sciences university in Berlin, teaching ethics, and I'm a member of the steering committee of MenEngage Europe. I run an NGO called PathForge. I've been interested in masculinities and men for quite a while, and right now I also run a working group on positive narratives as they are used in encouraging men to engage in gender equality. Run out of breath. I will pass it on to my co-host, Aleks.
Okay. I am Aleks. I am a co-founder and chairperson of an NGO called Men Against Violence in Malta, which is mostly concerned in working with men and boys in primary prevention of gender-based violence. I'm on the board of MenEngage Europe and also representing Europe on the MenEngage Global Alliance board. That's it.
Right. Should we hear from Edouard then?
Okay. Thank you. My name is Edouard Manirakoze, Omar. I'm from Burundi. I think that I'm the only African to be represented here.
Huh?
And also, I'm a Muslim. I'm an Imam. And I have been the vice president of an alliance of Imam, an organization called Nadel Corridor Imams for Humanitarian Development. It's an organization from Burundi, Central Africa. I think that it's your first time to hear from an Imam from Burundi, a very small country. And that country, that organization is used to promote women's rights, particularly Muslim women. Because as you are here, it's your first time to hear that there may be imams who do support women's rights. This because, I'm sorry first for my English, because Burundi is a French-speaking country. So if I'm trying to speak English, I get some difficulties, but because of my stay in MenEngage, I do try to express myself in English, but there is no problem. And I have been working in MenEngage Burundi. I have been the president of the steering committee of Burundi MenEngage, but I'm sorry, okay. But this time, I'm also a co-founder. Okay. I'm sorry. It was my colleagues who were passing here. I'm also a co-founder of an organization called Gender and Social Inclusion. Gender and Social Inclusion. It's also an organization which have been co-founded by a Burundian, me, and also the president is live in France. So I'm interested in this kind of discussion, and I'm very happy to meet you for my first time. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you for joining us. And finally, I'll pass it on to Jan.
I'm Jan Reynders. I live in the Netherlands. I'm since 1968. I've been a gender justice activist, and since the last 20 years, consultant as well. I'm a father and a grandfather, and those are very important issues for me because they help me to shape and reflect on patriarchal masculinities.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, guys. There are no further questions. I guess we can move on. So, as the slide here shows, we have read before this session the report by the MenEngage Alliance that just came out in June 2025 on resisting backlash and focusing on ways forward for the alliance itself. And if you haven't read it yet, if you're watching this later, you can find this text under menengage.org/resources, and I will add the link into the description of the video. So if you're interested, please read it with us. And now everyone in here has read it, so we can move on to the discussion. Just to get us started, an opening question maybe. The report obviously talks about the different phases of the backlash that the world is experiencing, the backlash against progressive values or gender justice, equality, feminism, and progressive values in general. And I was just wondering, how does what you read in the report relate to your actual kind of personal or institutional experience of your work and, well, wherever you are? So in Malta, in the Netherlands, or in Burundi? What in the report kind of chimed with you? How did you see it relating to your practice?
Shall I go? Can I go?
Please.
Because my introduction was very brief, my breath was lacking. One of my main interests, and I've been researching for a long time, is actually backlash, and so it started basically. My partner, my wife, is also a women's rights activist, and it's sort of once some sort of threats happened and online and stuff, I started following some people, and then eventually started understanding that looking into this global or bigger picture of men rights activists and so on and so forth. One thing led to another. So I have a number of years that I've been sort of following the trends or trying to keep up with the trends, because sometimes it's very, very difficult for one person to do. And I was one of those people. There were few that every time MenEngage in the last, let's say, several years, we had very few in-person meetings. I was one of those who was nagging people, we need to, work on this. This is something that I think we are, as organizations that work with men in some form or way, we are, I think, perfectly positioned, and we have enough experience within our network to come up with there's no magic wand, there's no magic pill solution, but with plausible and effective work that can be done. So when it came to coming up with this report, and the secretariats did a good job. Alan, whose name I can't remember, who organized these sessions, focus groups. I participated in them for Europe, and where we discussed, the backlash in our local environment, or in European country setting. And I like the end result, the report. I mean, it's not, how shall I say, it's not a sort of manual on like this has to be done. It's not that detailed, but I don't think that was the target in the first place. And I think in general, I think it managed to describe the basic trajectories of these movements that are happening, and it managed to capture the main issues that are at stake. So overall, in my experience, obviously I don't know much about what is happening, say, in Africa or in other areas, but related to Europe or Western English-speaking world, online world, it reflects reality really, really well.
Thanks. Jan?
I've actually had quite a bit of trouble with the whole term backlash, because it assumes there were civil rights, there was some form of gender equality, and I find it a rather Western notion of countries that have been able to develop certain notions within the larger democracy of equality, civic rights, and that sort of things. And I find that a bit problematic. And if we go back to colonial issues, colonial periods, then I must say the first backlash would actually, and of course that term was not used, when the missionaries introduced the religions to different parts of the world, they also introduced a gendered world. Now, I'm not saying that those countries had no hierarchies, or those nations or those peoples had no hierarchies. They had them as well. But the churches from the global north, from the colonial powers, they introduced a gendered world. They even told people how to dress and how to behave and who should be at home and what the nature of the role of the women should be. So in that sense, backlash, if we call it that way, started way, way, way back. And it's not a recent phenomenon. And I think that's something we should keep in mind, because it's now presented in this report and as at large in the feminist movement as something rather recent. And I don't think that's correct. And in fact, there was another backlash, I would say, in the late 70s, when radical feminism came in from the US to Europe, that really changed the views of feminism to a complete different way of looking at rights and the roles of man, for that matter, in terms of helping to change the process. So I find the notion of backlash limiting and needs to be more discussed in terms of where, what, and how. And that's what's calling for in the document. In that sense, it's useful to see that happening. But I think it requires MenEngage to go deeper in the different contexts that we live in.
Interesting, thank you. Edouard, do you have a perspective on that as well?
Okay, I have many backlash. As Muslim Imam working for the promotion of women's rights, there have to be many backlash. So I'd like to tell you, for example, I choose to advocate for women rights promotion because in Islamic religion, it is a religion which is known not to respect women's rights, but it is not by Islamic rules, no, but African culture or Arabic culture. So Arabic culture and Islamic culture are very, very different. African culture and Islamic culture is very, very different. So I'm here to show people that what we see Muslims do according to the respect of women's rights, it's not what Islam teaches. So when teaching this, when showing this, I get many backlash. Where are you from? What are you dealing with? It means that you are from Europe. Maybe you are acting as Europeans, not as Africans. But I have to show, using Quran, using Islamic laws, to show that Muslims is the first religion to give respect to women. So dealing with this, I got many backlash. Secondly, my wife is Catholic. She is not Muslim. An imam to have a Catholic wife, this is not also well received in my communities, but it is Islam. Islam do agree with me. Even my marriage have been celebrated by the what we call Qadi, the one who is who have to make respect the law, Islamic law. I'm sorry for my English. If it would be in French, I would express myself without any problem. So I and my organization got many problems to deal with this issue. I have been the vice president of Burundi MenEngage. I have been also the president of the MenEngage Burundi MenEngage Steering Committee, and I have also been a member of MenEngage Africa Steering Committee. So whenever they heard me speaking this, all of them have been surprised. Not because they weren't familiar to see Imam expressing themselves according to the respect of women's rights. So what to tell you is this: whenever you will see people or Muslim acting as they are acting without respecting women's rights, make sure that it is because of African culture, Arabic culture, but not Islam. Islam is right. When if we had time, I should tell you what Islam teaches according to the respect of women's rights. One example only because of the time. One example. For example, if at your home you do not have someone to prepare food, it is up to you, men, the husband, to prepare it. Even to wash clothes. If there is no one to do it, the one that you men you have to pay, Islam says it is you who have to wash first your clothes and your wife's clothes. So if your wife wills, she may wash them. But if she said that I cannot do that, Islam religion says your wife is right. That is only one example. So even to breastfeed your kid, if she said, no, I do not like this, your wife is right. And Islam says it's right. It's your kid, not for your wife. So you have to do your best to search for how to breastfeed your kid. So when we are trying to show that men should engage, have to be engaged, to respect women's rights, should have to have the first position to deal with many activities, to help their wives, not to share household. Men in Islam have to take the first place, the first position to deal with that. So when dealing with this in my country, in my community, we do get many backlash. I'm sorry for my English.
No, that's all right. Thank you very much, and it's great to have very diverse perspectives on this as well.
But if you should know French, there should be no problem. If you knew French, there would be no problem.
All right, I think we're good already as it is, but it's really interesting how those different phases of backlash are, and in some ways, what you were saying as well shows that I know modern people are very focused on what is happening right now, right? And we maybe forget the history, or we forget that it happens differently in different places as well. And similarly, as we are quick to point out that the crisis of masculinity is nothing new, for example, right? And masculinity has been in crisis since we can remember. What you're, Jan, saying, and what like maybe in other places as well, like the backlash has been ongoing as well. But I think it's really interesting because in the report they are talking. So I don't think that they're that careless as to say that the backlash is a completely new phenomenon. They're talking about the present day intensification of the backlash, right? And I think that, and kind of like the intensification of the manosphere and all of this. And they try to identify some sources of this. And I found it actually quite interesting that they really focus on, okay, so there are, I think, 3 sources that they've identified of the manosphere intensification, which is online anonymity, then various groups using male insecurities for political gain, and the fact that the conservative voices have become very good at recognizing men's problems and emotional struggles, and then providing them solutions, in scare quotes, that just exploit those problems and emotional struggles to kind of push them in a certain direction, right? So I find this really interesting from the perspective of, well, how technology mediates this. So that's one thing, and I think that it's an open question of how do we deal with the fact that this is just how technology is, and maybe the fact that online anonymity kind of provides people with this opportunity is hard to change, right? But also, I wondered what you think about those claims that basically the backlash is largely a result of certain specific voices using existing insecurities, existing problems, kind of for their own gain, for their own political gain. Yeah.
Just quickly, I mean, to me, it's primarily neoliberalism that has changed the way we produce things, the way we need labor. Just look at different phases in history. Look at the Second World War, where women in the US were actually doing all the work in the factories because they had to make arms. The men were fighting here. After the war, women go back to the kitchen. That's where you belong. Now, this moment has changed because now you need lots of hands, women's hands. Look at Bangladesh as an example, where all the work in the sweatshops, the factories that make the textiles, all done by women. Men are the supervisors that do the actual work. So you need lots of women. And the men now feel, oh, I don't have a job anymore. These jobs are taken by the women. No, the job's not taken by the women. It's new jobs because your job was to drive heavy trucks, to lift heavy weights in farming. Even in farming, you sit in a combined harvester these days, and you have an air conditioning, and you have coffee machines. So it's a complete different world today from what it was before.
We lost Edouard for a moment. Well, let's continue the discussion. Hopefully, here we go.
I was going to it's this thing, and I like that you mentioned neoliberalism. There was, and actually we mentioned at the beginning that we'll meet on Friday at the conference. I will mention this in a little brief part because I don't have much time. The backlash was always there. It's nothing new. I can go actually 1850s from the moments of the first organized women emancipation movements. There was organized backlash in some form of way, and even the organized backlash that targeted masculinity was there because men, husbands, wives, husbands, brothers, fathers of those women that were at the beginning of let's say, some national or international women's rights movement. They were targeted as, as weak men, as not strong enough to control their women and things like that. And so then go back to 60s, 70s, there were these books that were published and written, by these angry men on, about how they're being used, how women actually rule the world and stuff like that. The current backlash is, and this is okay, as Jan said, maybe the word backlash, to refer this, it's not a new phenomenon, is not the ideal, but I think that it became sort of commonly used to describe this phenomenon, that in this neoliberal society where, many of the problems that men face are a product of the economic system of that actually, it doesn't leave just men behind. It would leave everyone behind, in the interest of the few. But that loss of footing, sort of loss of certain not certainty, but assumed certainties in man's life, let's say, let's put it that way, is how shall I say, which brings this sort of masculinity in transition, or masculinity problem that we are talking about. And there are many people that are very skilled and very smart and very what's the word, very cunning, in a way that they actually use these, call them insecurities or weaknesses or whatever, or this moment in time, to actually abuse of it and to misdirect. And once we are talking about MenEngage organization, and undo a lot of good work that we are doing, and it's for no benefits of men, but for those few, and definitely not benefit for anybody else, but people who are actually abusing of the situation and bringing this thing to life.
Yeah, it's interesting. I literally just recorded another discussion panel in which we were talking about the crisis of masculinity and how the crisis is effectively manufactured because it serves certain people, that men are in crisis. Because when people are in crisis, they listen to the person who gives them a solution, makes them feel safe, makes them feel secure, makes them feel like they're taken care of. And they don't look deep enough to notice that actually this person is the one who actually produced this crisis in the first place. But I think that I'm really also happy that you brought up neoliberalism, because this is something that came up in the report, kind of in between the lines, which is that the narrative of the backlash is that, it's like the narrative of the backlash is that, look, we need to go back, or we need to stand up against these ideologies or progressive ideologies, because look where they got us. They got us to a situation in which you don't have a job, you don't and there's all of those problems. And it's really interesting how they identify the problems, all right. They say, like, yeah, there is a problem, right? I mean, people are in a socially difficult situation. There's a lot of uncertainty in the world today. There's a lot of things that threaten our basic existence, our basic safety. But they don't identify the real cause for it, right? They put it onto the gender ideology or something like this, while actually the cause of it is neoliberalism, or is the kind of creating an economic system which is by design meant to exploit people. Alex,
either I lost you or you lost me.
We lost you for a second. Jan, are you there? Okay.
It's all fine.
Okay, good. So I think it's just really interesting from the perspective of what do we do as well, because we can sit here and complain that people are not attentive enough, or maybe not careful enough to actually dig deeper and inquire about the real causes, right? And they're kind of easily given a boogeyman to rally up against and not actually going into the right thing. But this is maybe how people are, right? Like a lot of people they know that they hurt, they know that something is wrong, they know that it needs to be fixed. And when they're given a direction, they, for whatever reason, they don't really inquire deep enough for this. And I think that it's a really interesting thing that came out in between the lines in this report for me, which says that, the alt-right and the various backlash movements have been really good at exploiting this, right? They have been really good at acknowledging, hey, those people, they just want to be told what to do, or they want to be given a solution. They want to be, given a simple explanation of what is going on. There's like this quote in there that says, what was it? They called it the cultural interpretation of the contemporary male malaise, or something like that, right? And the thing is, they give them this cultural explanation, and it's a wrong explanation, but they give them this explanation, right? And it's a very effective way of pushing those people in a certain direction, and maybe also distracting them from the fact that the actual causes of their malaise are neoliberal economics, or austerity, or climate destruction, or other things like this. So just to finish this, I think that in many ways those people are right to be annoyed, or right to feel like something is wrong, and they are in this state in which they are looking for someone to blame, and they're easily manipulated and given someone to blame. Yeah. And to me, the question is, okay, so we can focus a lot on how horrible it is that the alt-right is giving them the wrong thing to blame. But to me, the real question is, are we good enough at giving them the right thing to blame? Right? Why do they listen to them? The question is not to me, why do they listen to them, or what do they do so that the people listen to them? The question to me is, what can we do better so that they listen to us?
Which then does mean, if I look at the paper, our solutions should also directly address the link between patriarchal masculinities and neoliberalism. Mm-hmm. Because if we don't address the root causes, we can talk for ages about man feeling lonely, man feeling this, feeling that. We have to address the root causes and then see where we can find solutions together with those who are active in the broader field. That means also we have to link up with people who are active in the field of fighting neoliberalism, fighting climate injustices, because then you actually bring different movements together for a common cause. And I think that is something we've been talking about. We haven't really been very successful yet. I mean, let's put it this way. And we need to do more in that field. That's in terms of recommendation. That's at the end of the paper. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I think that's exactly the thing. I think if you're looking at this as a sort of, you have some sort of two sides of we have somebody joining.
We have somebody joining. Gladys, thanks for joining.
The sound of crickets, if I'm not mistaken.
That's a backlash.
That's.
Do you have a camera you could switch on, Gladys, when you're joining us as well? Can you hear us?
Hello.
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 Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Yeah, good evening. I am Barrister Gladys Mboya, the president of FIDA Cameroon.
Oh, thanks very much for joining us.
International Federation of Women Lawyers.
Thanks very much for joining us. We've been already discussing the text for a bit, but please feel free to join in the discussion right now at any point you want. Do you have a camera you could switch on as well? So it's just nicer to discuss when you can see them.
It's really dark where I am and the network is not so good, but let me try to switch the camera on.
Thank you very much.
If it doesn't go well, then I'll switch off the camera.
Mm-hmm.
How do I do this? While using this app? Okay, yeah.
Fantastic, thank you. Alex, do you want to finish the thought?
Yes. Where was I? Yes, if you are looking at this, some sort of, I hate these sort of, but one side, two sides in sort of clashing for some. What Jan rightfully said is that the backlash movement or and all the actors involved have been really, really, really good at creating alliances on things they agree on. So, they will work together on things they agree on and completely ignore, that they are disagreeing on many, many other things. Various organizations and groups and, pro-life, masculinist, religious organization, political parties that have many, many differences between them. They are not in any way homogeneous, unified ideology, but they are very, very ready to work together on things they do agree on. On the other hand, from sort of our side, that is trying to work for equality, work for gender justice and so on and so forth, we have been really, really good at tearing each other down. I think very often, very often at the smallest philosophical, ideological differences often are enough to I'm not going to say demand the purity of thoughts in order to be sort of unified ideological movement as well, which we are not. I mean, even the schools of feminism, there are so many, if nothing else, so you're not real feminist unless this or that, or which I think that this is something that we should work on, and B, that is definitely the case that the movement resisting backlash, or not resisting, but creating the narratives which are positive and right, so to say, has to be wider, and it has to involve many, many, many other. It's multifaceted issue, and Jan already mentioned. Is it the global warming? Is it the civil society that fights for democracy, for the rule of law, and things like that? Those are all things that we should be able to, and we should work much harder in creating alliances and working on the issues we agree on together.
I find this really interesting in the context of the report itself, because in the recommendations, it mentions that the members were wanting to have a more unified front, a more more specific thing that we can agree on. And I thought when reading this, I was thinking exactly what you're saying right now, Alex, which is that getting progressive people to agree on things is really difficult. And I guess, if you're part of a movement that literally says you're meant to think for yourself rather than you're just meant to follow what they tell you, then, well, you get a lot of people who think for themselves, right? And who want to, who differ in there. So I think it's kind of a little bit inherent in how we operate. But I do think that when I was reading this, I was just kind of a part of the cynical part of me was going like, oh yeah, good luck with that. Getting people to actually agree on a unified front. So I think this is a very interesting point. Gladys, sorry, you're joining a bit late, and there's a bit of feedback coming from your side. So I muted your microphone for now. If you want to speak, please raise your hand or signal somehow, and I'll unmute your mute. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm
Fantastic.
so sorry I joined late. It was a mix-up of time, the time zone. So I'm really very sorry.
No problem. Glad you're
I will
here.
just follow the discussion.
Very well. All right. Well, I was thinking about around this topic as well, that there's this point that was raised in the that was kind of coming throughout the report, which kind of comes back to the question of neoliberalism and other things, which is that anti-gender backlash is kind of a part of a bigger picture as well, which is a more general anti-democratic backlash, or it's a backlash against not just progressive values, but against democratic values. And I think it's part of what we were talking about before as well, which is that in times of unsafety or uncertainty, of the job market's changing, AI threatening to take our jobs, and immigration, climate change, whatever else, right? People tend to want safety. And this is what those kind of authoritarian leaders are promising. They're promising that, a clear hierarchy, going back to what we knew, not any of those fancy new things that nobody understands and stuff like that. And authoritarianism promises stability and safety in times of uncertainty. Obviously, does it deliver it? That's a completely different question, right? But that's kind of the platform on which it runs. Today many people do feel insecure, unsafe, worse off than their parents, and kind of let down and betrayed. So yeah, I was just curious what you think of this as well, kind of like this being part of this broader picture.
But it's a little bit of a the oldest marketing trick in the world. I mean, convince somebody, or show somebody that there is a problem, and then try to tell them that you are the one who actually has a solution. I mean, obviously, people in the time of crisis tend to congregate around the leader. Tend to sort of try to join some and find some sort of safety and security, and that makes sense in these global terms, but also in this, like when we are talking more about political and neoliberal usage, so to say. But there are these little players that fit into these pictures. They like these masculinity influencers. The dating coaches, and I don't want to mention names, and the people who teach men how to be alpha. Which are based, for me, I think that there is a little bit of a lack of critical thinking, because, the very, very notion of that you can teach somebody to be an alpha, in a sense of, I'm an alpha male, and if you want, and I'm independent and strong and leader, and I'm, everybody wants to be like me. And if you want to become like me, you have to become a part of my herd. Which is a opposite of being an alpha, and like there is an oxymoron in the very idea of this that you can be taught to be something. And so many young people are so how shall I say, can it be that they're so lost that these kind of thoughts, which are, to me at least, so transparently wrong and illogical, actually gaining ground. And I think this is the another thing that we need to discuss, is that we need young people involvement. I think this is one of the very, very important ones, because the culture of internet is different, and you need to understand, you need to sort of immerse yourself in it to understand it, and to follow how these things happen and how these things work. And that's I think it is. I mean, I just turned 50 this year, and it's definitely understanding these certain aspects of this issue is definitely for people who are more up to date in terms of age, and in terms of knowledge and understanding of internet cultures and how they work and how they operate.
I think the whole issue of being at a time of insecurity, in terms of men losing their jobs, in terms of women feeling, oh, are we the problem in that case? Religions, it's not just strong leaders, also religions make use of that.
Yeah.
In a way of attracting people. Look at the threat wives. Where did threat wives come from? Because in the Bible it says you should be at home as a woman and a man should be the provider. Zero. And that's it, no? So, and the many religions then say, okay, but then you should get as many children as possible, because different religions say that, get more children because you have to be at home and that's your duty. So we get that's really a backlash where religious leaders are making use of their power to say, with all this modernization, that has not been any good, because that's why we have all this insecurity. Not blaming neoliberalism, but blaming the changes in societies, the social changes in terms of women's rights, feminism, and all that. Once you start doing that, then you really you don't point at the real reasons, but you use your power to to help people to, all right, let's get rid of LGBTIQ. Let's get rid of feminism. Let's really get man back to manhood as it should be, patriarchy as it should be, and women should feel comfortable with that. And I think that's where really, as MenEngage Alliance, we should really pinpoint where the real causes are. Otherwise, we keep on walking, running behind the wagon.
Yeah,
I find this really interesting that this is a discussion that we're having now, because to me, those are really captivating narratives that we could be using in here. It's standing up to the man, it's like fighting against those exploitative corporations. And those are like heroic narratives that, like, why aren't we doing this? Like there are movies about people standing up to neoliberal exploitation.
Be honest, how many members of MenEngage would fully agree with that? That's a discussion we should have, because when it comes to common vision, I think this is a discussion we should really have.
Mm-hmm.
Are we willing to pinpoint really what the root causes are? And if we are, then what does it mean to us as individuals or organizations? The subsidies we get or we don't get anymore, our political alliances in the countries that we live in, the opportunities we have or the risk we run.
Mm-hmm.
How far can we go? How far do we actually, as MenEngage members, feel committed to addressing the root causes rather than to addressing the symbols, I would almost say.
It's a bit. No, I absolutely understand, because it's okay. We all do some work. We all do the work, the groundwork, and we help as much as we can. But we are all constantly dealing with symptoms rather than going, and dealing with a problem requires some sort of, various kind of revolutions taking place, and should we talk about that?
Yeah. All right. Well, let's take this somewhat uncomfortable moment as a moment for a break. So how about 5 minutes to catch our breath, okay? Yeah. And then we can come back to it and start exploring other topics as well. All right. I'll see you in a minute. Right. Mm-hmm. I thought that it would be really good in the second half to focus really on the kind of solutions that are mentioned in the report, and what we can actually, like what the report proposes and what we think about those proposals, and maybe where we can go with this. And I wanted to maybe launch this conversation with, there are 2 quotes in that which really struck me, which I thought were really interesting. And I wanted to chat about both of them. And the first one has to do with this claim that is, again, present throughout the entire report, which is that there is a patriarchal narrative out there, which is men have been left behind. It's a narrative around this kind of like grievance of having been left behind. And the report identifies this as a patriarchal narrative specifically. And then I think it asks at various points, like, well, what do we do with all of those men who do feel like that? I mean, maybe they're wrong to feel like this, but they do feel like this, right? And then there's this quote that says on page 19, which says, working with men to unpack not only the gendered, but also class and racialized dimension of their experiences and feeling of being left behind must constitute to be a key focus of MenEngage's response to patriarchal background and resistance. And I found this really interesting. And I wondered if you have any thoughts of how do you perceive this, the narrative of men being left behind, men's perception of being left behind, and our role in addressing those feelings.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Men have not been left behind. Men have got stuck.
Mm-hmm.
Men have got stuck and have not kept up with developments in terms of their mindset, in terms of their emotional abilities, in terms of the change that have taken place around them. Women have actually not stood still. They moved forward. And they've actually claimed rights for good reasons, because they were denied their rights, because that's the patriarchal notion. Men have had the notion of, well, we've got all those rights, we've got those privileges. Come on, that's not going to change. They got stuck. They forgot that the world is changing. Neoliberalism is changing. Everything is changing around it, and they got stuck. They did not change themselves. And I think in that sense, they did not be left. They were not left behind. They left themselves behind.
Yeah. It's a sort of, if you're but for me, it's a sort of even that resistance. It's a sort of an admission.
Yeah.
All is good. Why should I change?
Exactly.
And it is maybe that emotional blindness a little bit.
Yeah.
Of not being, unless it happens to you, and until it happens to you, to understand that there are, people that are minorities that are mistreated and who don't have rights, or who experience certain things that because especially if you are like me, middle-aged white male, you did not have to experience it on your skin. Maybe to it and blind why somebody would fight for equality, and then keep on moving and keep on developing and keep on making life better for themselves, and then being stuck and being unwilling, or maybe we could argue that there is a big part of them that are incapable of actually, I disagree with that. Once I said it, I don't think I disagree with it. But I think that maybe they just don't have emotional or whatever tools, enough to help them move forward. And maybe that's a part where we could somehow tap in and maybe play a role there.
And they also have not had the sort of the self-reflection that perhaps those sort of benefits that they had as man, those privileges, were actually not privileges. They were actually burdens.
Yeah.
To be the single breadwinner, to be not allowed to be emotionally around, to leave all the caring to your partner if you have a female partner. But then the class issue comes in, and I think that's where Simon really focused on. The class issue comes in because privileges is also a class issue. Some people did not have the privilege of being well taken care of by their parents to begin with, their family, education level and all that. So they start from scratch. And if you ask them, have you got privileges? They would say, what privileges are you talking about? At the same time, when they come back home, they may demand from their wife that the food is ready and not too salty. And they may hit the dog. And if there's no dog, they may hit somebody else. If so in that sense, class issue is really, really important, I think, to acknowledge, because the whole notion of privileges really comes in all the aspects of are we benefiting from patriarchy? Who is benefiting from patriarchy? And to what extent are you benefiting from patriarchy? Are you recognizing the evil it does to you in terms of your healthcare, in terms of your notion of what you're entitled to? And are you happy with that? And if not, what are you able to do? And I think that's where our narratives, in terms of alternatives, if you want to be happy, do something more. If you want to be happy, start addressing these issues. Don't feel ashamed. Don't feel bad. Find people around you that come along with you to actually challenge the so-called privileges and see whether do you have them, if you don't have them, and if they're not good for you, get rid of them.
I think this is really interesting because the question is, have we been good at pointing this out, right? And like actually getting men to see this. Because obviously, the other, like the backlash constitutes on people recognizing that they're unhappy where they are, but blaming the wrong side for it, right? And I think that in the manosphere, a lot of men do recognize that a bunch of things that they kind of had to do as the real men in the patriarchy, like, let women and children first, and like die at war and whatever else. Like they recognize that they're not privileges. They recognize that they are problems, but they blame women for this, right? Or they blame the wrong people for this.
No, they blame exactly. They blame changes around them, because women took charge. I mean, a long time ago, and it's still work in progress. There's still, plenty to do. But they took charge. They organized. They, worked together in different streams and streaks of action. Because it's multifaceted, and made progress in many places. I mean, there is nothing stopping men from doing that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And especially when they say loneliness of men. There is an epidemic of loneliness. I heard you hear that. I mean, if men are lonely, they can just get together. But I mean, okay, I'm being
I think that's a bit reductionist.
Yeah, being a bit fictitious here, but the one of the big problems I have with Backlash and men rights, these red pill groups, is that they manage to sort of gather or get attention, and get big numbers of some of these forums have big number of men who are there, and instead of really dealing with stuff they ought to deal with, they spend time pointing fingers and being angry.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very disappointing, because it's this is something that can be tapped into, and it's they're making it harder and harder and harder.
Yeah, I wonder, because I think that guiding this needs to also recognize something that Jan already mentioned, which is that the class issue. And I really like to coming back to that as well, because I think that an uncomfortable truth for many people on the progressive side is that we tend to kind of look the other way when the class issues are. Because most of us are upper middle class, right? And most of us are really educated and all that. And exactly, and that's privilege that we're kind of not as keen to recognize. And I think that it came out in the context of what you were saying. It came out in this report because when I was reading it, I was thinking, okay, so what the authors recognize in that is that the right-wing narratives are very successful because they're simple, because they really speak to people, and they speak to people who, maybe those people have better, they need to work 2 jobs to make ends, they don't have time to get into the fine details of everything. They just, this is the kind of thing that they are able to engage with, right? And those people are really good at speaking to them at this level. And then the recommendation number 1 on page 33 says, we should synthesize and share feminist critical analysis of anti-gender, men's rights, and anti-feminist offensive globally, because there is an evident need to strengthen the shared analysis of understanding across the alliance of the complexities of patriarchy. I mean, no, we need a simple, to the point message.
Yes.
We don't need to get into explaining the fine details of everything. I find this recommendation to be very middle class, to be very kind of privileged, educated. And I think that it would be really interesting for us as well as a challenge to think, how do we present our messages in a way that takes into account the fact that not everybody has the time or the capacity or the willingness or whatever else, the resources to actually delve so deep into those issues, right? And if we go to people and say hey, we won't talk to you unless you read those 15 tomes of feminist criticism, then we lost them before we started talking to them.
And sometimes I just ask men that I talk to, and work is here in the house, when they were doing some work, what would make you happy?
Mm-hmm.
And they said, that silence. I said, what do you mean? And then we have been discussing things about family and having kids and not having kids yet, and this and that. And then, we're 4 workers, people working on a roof here. So I asked them, what would you like? What would really be making you happy in terms of the work you do, but also life? And, and then you get a different conversation. None of them would actually say women have caused her trouble. Not at all. Yeah. None of them. They would simply say, well, actually, this is how we were brought up. This is the way we should be doing things. Actually, perhaps it could be different. And I think when people say perhaps it could be different, I think we've had a situation where, right, let's talk about it. What would you like to do different? What would you like to see different in your life or in the lives around you, and that makes you happy? Can you challenge? Because that's the question I always ask. Can you challenge the norms that are imposed on you? Not asking it that terminology, of course, but actually, can you be different? Are you allowed to be different? If you say, actually, I wanted to spend more time with my partner, and she actually has a job too, and she could actually work for money, and I could be at home with the child, how will your friends look at that? Oh, that's a question. And then, I would love that. I would love that. But, in my culture, it's not really. All right, then let's discuss. So I think there are many more options we don't really use in very simple terminology. What makes you happy? What do you require for that? What makes you healthier? Your mind, your physics, and all that. I think we can do much more.
And I think it's true. Now, it's not, obviously, it's not that first point is wrong. It's not wrong. It's not wrong. It's, number one, I was interviewed once locally, by a journalist, and we were talking. I was trying to explain the point, the privilege and things like that, and he said, and it's a fact. He asked me, so you have a man who works from morning to 5 o'clock, and then he goes to his second job,
Right.
in order to support his wife and the kids. And how do you tell him, you're privileged,
Right?
And it's finding terms, as you said, like what is the, because we keep on forgetting sometimes we are fighting structures, okay? Like we are fighting something that is bigger than individual person. So do you want to spend more time with your kids? Why can't you? Because it's structurally, financially, economically, societal expectations are different. All these things are structures which affect what one person, how far can one person move in the direction that he wants. And yes, big chunk. And I'm very often disappointed with not often disappointed, but like many of these conferences I'm present and we talk about intersectionality, how important is intersectionality, and how we bring, the gender, the race, whatever, and very few and very rarely that somebody mentions class.
Yep.
Because being of the right class can help you avoid many of the disadvantages of being gay or being woman, or being, what I mean. If you are rich enough, you won't have certain problems, because and if you're going back to like the patriarchy, who benefits? Very few, and at the level that they are untouched.
I think apart from class, we have to add color as well. If you're black
yes.
in a white society, you're discriminated left, right, and center, even if you're a high class, for that matter.
Yeah. But they all, intersectionality, that's the whole point. But in my experience, at least in the last decade that I've been really into this, very often, like intersectionality, it's mentioned, the race, the migration status, gender, sexuality, whatever. But people very often forget class, and it's one of the crucial ones.
True.
I find it really frustrating as well whenever there is a new election and there is a breakdown of how people voted by, gender or location or all that. There's always a breakdown by education level, for example, or by income and things like that. And you very regularly find that people with lower education or people with lower income vote for more right-wing ideas, right? Or parties. And I find it very dispiriting that so often the narrative that then comes from the progressive side is, oh, look at all of those stupid people, those uneducated, dumb people who are, they're clearly easily. And the narrative is not like, well, what is it that those people actually like? No, the point of democracy is that it represents everybody. Yeah. And if we like, the point of democracy is that there are some MPs who are representing those people. And it's no wonder that they, do what those. I mean, that's literally the job of the MP, right? Is to represent their constituency. And if their constituency wants this, then it's the job of the MP to do this. And I think that it would do us also good in terms of resisting backlash to just listen more to those people and kind of also admit that as we go around talking about how privilege is invisible to those who have it, and we need to rise against this, then sometimes a good long look in the mirror and going like, oh, what privileges do I have that are invisible to me, might be a useful thing as well.
It starts with introspection. You always, if you want to get, or if you are involved in this, that's the first thing you need to do. You need to find your position in all this. And And yes, we definitely more listening. But I think that there is a place for everything. There is a place for humor in activism or changing mind. There is a place for criticism, and there is a place for listening and empathizing.
Of course.
Sometimes, at powerful men who say or affect things in a bad way, I think that we need to criticize them. We need to laugh at them. It has to be a whole spectrum of reaction, I think. And then, once you're speaking to someone who is obviously you are more privileged then the importance of listening and understanding and empathizing becomes more important. I mean, I'm speaking strictly as an activist here, in terms of possible action taken. But there is a whole spectrum of things that can be done and should be done in terms of a groundwork. Because it's a multifaceted issue, there is a place for everything.
Absolutely.
And coming back to what you said earlier, Simon, you said within a movement, all these people, but perhaps even more among the leftists, they all have their own views, independence, and all that. One thing that we really require, and that goes for any movement for that matter, is tolerance with different views.
Yeah.
Because if you're in the MenEngage Alliance and you make one mistake, you use one wrong word, your head is chopped off. If you happen to meet people who are into chopping off heads. Well, I mean, not physically, but and I think it's important for us that if you're confronted in a setting, whether a discussion, whatever it is, but somebody has an opinion that you feel, wow, how can that opinion still exist?
Yeah.
Be silent for a moment, listen up, and then start. Well, actually, I'm a bit surprised by what you're saying.
Sure.
Rather than out, you can't be a member of this organization. Out.
There is.
Your head. And I think. Go ahead.
No, please finish.
Well, I think what we need to do is we have to be able to help the persons to confront themselves and reflect themselves and ourselves, for that matter, whenever it comes, on what we've said and why we said it and how we said it, in terms of how it affects other people, how other people feel either denied in their being or in their mind or whatever it is. At the same time, if you're willing to learn and if you're ready to learn, then do not exclude these people, because they actually represent majority of us who always make mistakes. Even in this broader field of trying to make a better world, trying to be better ourselves individually, to finally come to the systemic changes that we require. But that does require reflection of, okay, I am part of this neoliberal world, and I buy my things in a grocery shop, and I do not always buy organic because I can't afford it. Whatever it is. And I think we should really have the tolerance, at the same time help to reflect what can we do differently to make your life happier, better, and sort of make your life contributing to the changes that we really want. Rather than
yeah, no, I think it's a good general point, which comes back to what Alex was saying earlier, which is that, it seems sometimes like on the right, people can disagree wildly, and as long as you put a MAGA hat on, you're one of us, and it's all fine.
Right.
Whereas we can agree on 99% of things, but we'll fight to the death about the 1% rather than actually, focus on doing the 99%. So I think it's a broader problem, and yeah, I definitely wish that there was a change of attitude in that. Can I propose? There's a topic that I was really, there's the second quote that I mentioned, and really kind of pushed me to think, and I wondered what you thought as well. So one of the quotes from the responders to the study said that one of those people said, "I think that the battle for the cultural interpretation of contemporary male malaise is being won by the extreme right." And I was reading this and thinking to myself, what interpretations of the contemporary male malaise have we been giving? Like, is this battle? So then the report goes on to ask many questions about, like, saying and talking about how the Backlash is very successfully doing some things that kind of address this male malaise, if you want, or like get men on board, right? So it's connecting with anti-establishment feelings that people have. It's providing compelling cultural explanations, like why is it that you're feeling it? They're wrong explanations. They're pointing at feminism and woke culture and whatever else, but they're compelling. Yeah? They try to help men feel safe and secure. They enter a dialogue with the men who feel left behind. They offer them community and things like this, right? And the report goes on about how the backlash is successful because it does all of those things. And what I think was quite interesting to me, that the report is very light then on offering recommendations on how do we do those things ourselves as well. Because when I was reading this quote, right, that they are winning the cultural battle for the interpretation of contemporary male malaise, I was thinking to myself, are they winning it or are we just giving it up? Right? Because we're not actually offering a very good cultural interpretation of, like, there's some voices at least that say, well, there is no male malaise. You're just whining, and you should check your privilege and all of this. And in many cases, it might be right, but those people are looking for answers. They're looking for community. They're looking for someone to make them feel safe, secure. They're looking to channel their anti-establishment feelings and all of this. Like, what do you think? Because I think that if we look at our progressive leaders, and I don't mean right now, I don't even mean to because I think that many organizations that actually work with men and boys have been good at this, right? They have been addressing those problems. But the question is more about our kind of general leaders, right? Our political parties, our people out there who are actually kind of shaping this landscape. And I think it would be useful for us to ask ourselves the question: well, have those leaders been good at doing those things? And I was wondering if you think that the leaders in your countries, or maybe wherever you see, have been good at engaging those men and trying to, explain this male malaise and offer solutions to it. And what do you think we could do to be better at it, so that we take into account that there is a malaise, there is a problem, and how do we offer solutions?
Magic wand now I need, or abracadabra, I think in terms of MenEngage organizations, as you know, I work in a primary prevention, so I work with teenagers, and there is a lot of good work, and there is a lot of good practices that have been tried and tested and work. But there is only so much that you can do in a 1 hour intervention in a classroom, whilst the influencer 10 different influencers can pop out a 10-minute reel with a lot of, daily, and the hours they spend on internet, and the when you're talking about, especially radicalization of young men. So there is as good or as willing the NGO is, we are limited in terms of time, resources, human power, and accessibility to these men. Or there are stuff that is being done, like in Sweden, they have a website where men can come and have a mentors talk about anything. It's been quite successful, so it's now copied in Spain, the similar principle and things like that. And I think we need more of that, and this is something that we can do, and in practical terms, in terms of groundwork, working with individuals or smaller groups and things like that. On a big picture, or I'll keep on talking, like there's politics with small p and politics with big P, and we are talking about leaders and some sort of meaningful change. I don't know. I'm very disappointed with leaders in the last decade or so. I don't think we've seen many, who took on, or who, how shall I say, who understand the issues fully, and who are fully committed, and that are, that will take those progressive ideas, or feminist ideas, which are good for men as well, anti-patriarchal, something to dealing with these issues, and taken them in full. I think along the way there is always some sort of compromise. There is always something that has to give, and even the well-meaning ones do not succeed or do not bring them to the fore that they should. Why? Maybe they just don't see that there is enough votes in it, and maybe what you said, maybe just we are giving it up, or maybe we are not loud enough. Possible, but there are limitations, I think, in what we can do, and I think it's for our own sake and for our sanity. We should think big and dream big, which is okay, but I think we should be concerned with what we can actually achieve.
Actually, when you say the manfluencers are providing a listening ear, I think that's not correct. The manfluencers, the manosphere people, are giving quick solutions.
Yeah.
They're telling you if you become rich, this is where you become rich, and then you become wealthy and powerful, and you're the man again as it should be. And this is all the world over. It's not just here. It was in Afghanistan when I was working there. The Taliban was actually telling poor people, poor man, if you want to get married, if you really want to become a man again, here's the money, here's the weapon, you become a real man again. It was not giving a listening ear to what the frustration of this man was, because he had parents that did not give the money for his education. He had no land. So what could he do? And that's the same in the Western world. If I listen to people who actually listen to these people, they say, actually, I don't get an answer. I get quick fixes, but not really. They don't listen to me. And I think if we can provide an actual listening ear, sort of really from a heart, a listening ear, really deep listening, and then say, okay, now what is it what you would like to do? What do you think your solution could be? From a feminist perspective, feminist informed perspective, and I think we can do much more. We should do much more, and it should not be only at individual level. It should be at a higher level, and ultimately by recognizing that the system provides these simple answers from the right side, and we can give different answers from working bottom up towards the changes that we all require, and that makes all of us happier, men, women, and all the diversities in between. And I think that's where we can be different from what the right is offering.
I think this is right, and I'm a deep believer in the idea that if we give better answers, then people will see it and they will vote with their feet, right? I mean, they will go for the thing that works over the thing that doesn't work. So I think our focus should be it's extremely important that we criticize misogyny, and that we don't let things slide, or don't let things go. But it's very important as well that we actually give better answers, that we offer alternatives that basically make people go like, no, these guys are the ones who have the answers. It's not these guys it's so. That's what I would really like to focus on. I mean, this is largely what the Positive Narratives Project is also.
And I want to actually go one step further. Mm-hmm. We should not be giving the answers. We should be providing the opportunity for people to find their own answers.
Yeah, yes. I think it's really interesting. I wonder. This is also a kind of uncomfortable question, because I wonder to what extent and how to negotiate the line in there, because. Just as the backlash is nothing new, and crisis is nothing new and stuff like that, so is the human tendency to want simple, quick, just want to follow, right? To not think for themselves, just to follow. I mean, ideologies and various massive. So I mean, that's what they do, right? They provide quick, simple answers. So I wonder to what I don't have an answer to this. I don't know what to think about this. I just wonder if there is some sort of trade-off that is involved in them.
But they provide a paradigm where if you accept ABC all the way to XYZ, then the world sort of starts making sense. So basically, going a bit Kuhnian, like you have to break that. The paradigm shift has to shift, and I think Jan is onto something, because there is some maybe might like quick and easy solution. Get rich and your problems are solved. As if everybody can get rich using the same principles or same jobs or whatever they, I think that guiding in a way of deconstructing it in the ways that are easier, or how shall I say, I don't want to say easier, but sort of easier to understand, if anything. And if people then if you provide them with tools to figure it out for themselves, then it's not you who instructed or directed. Then the idea belongs to them. They own it.
And they feel much more attached.
That has, in terms of transformation, that has much more power.
Yeah. If I listen to political parties here on the right, the most important thing they always say, well, people feel they're not listened to. Exactly. People feel not listened to. Let's listen to people in a broad sense, because then we can defeat the right side, so to speak, the manosphere, but also the right parties who are anti-democratic, because they say, we give a listening ear. No, they don't give a listening ear. All the right parties in the Netherlands have not voted anything at all in favor of poor people. Same goes for Trump.
Yeah, I think, and I would really like to also steer this discussion, because so often when we think about those things, we think about what we do as the organizations that work with men and boys. And I think that what we do and what the politicians do are very different things. And I think that maybe we even have those interpretations of the contemporary male malaise and all of this. And I think that, Alex, what you were saying earlier is totally right, that a lot of those organizations are actually doing this, and they do fantastic work. They obviously have very limited resources and can reach very limited numbers of people. The question is, how do we get this to the people who actually do have the platform, who do have the decision-making power and all of this? And to be fair, the report mentions that one of the things that we really need to do is be more strategic and target influential people, and speak to them so that they can actually do this as well. I think those are excellent recommendations. I think that perhaps the MenEngage Alliance is fantastically placed to be the place from which the expertise that has been developed by all of those organizations that are here, that does address those problems, could be shared with a wider political and social movements and things like this that could make use of them to affect this change. All right, we are running out of time. Do you guys have any parting thoughts before we?
No, but it's nice because this is our first time doing this. No, and it was nice to just talk about it without any, we are not in a conference. We are not in a, it's just something that I'm sure runs through our minds in our, you get a chance to thresh it out with people who are also involved, and it's helpful.
Absolutely.
But I feel a bit sort of awkward that we're just the three of us, white people from Western Europe. Did no other people sign up? Because I saw there were so many people on the email list, on the WhatsApp list. I want to come, I want to sign up. They want to just follow because they did not have the time to read, and I want to just follow what the discussion is. Or did people sign up and had no time?
I cannot answer you this question. In the end, we have 22 signups. Half of those people said that they want to watch the live stream.
Okay, all right.
So, but I was still expecting about 10, 11 people in here. So I don't know. Maybe we will hear from them in time. Perhaps they didn't have time to read or whatever else. I mean, everyone has their reasons. I would absolutely love for this group to grow and have more people. But also, it's the first time we're running it. Let's be generous here, and I don't think there's any point in we can find out maybe later. But if people want to join, I hope that they will, and I would very much encourage everyone who is watching this later as well to join us for the next editions. I hope you found this interesting, we will be definitely having more of those discussions. The plan is to have the group happening every month. So I will just have this kind of parting thought or parting remarks in here. So the whole group has been organized by myself and Alex, so PathForge and MenEngage Violence, with the blessing of the MenEngage Alliance. And if you want to know more about this, or if you want to ask any questions, please feel free to get in touch with me. I will be producing the video for this and producing the whole working group. So you can check out my website. You can get in touch or follow me, follow PathForge on the different social media. And if you would like to join the next discussions, then you are very warmly invited. We have not yet decided what will be the next text, but we also very much welcome suggestions for what you would like to read next. And all of those texts should be readable within 1 hour, maximum 2 hours. So hopefully this is not going to be a massive strain for people. And I hope that you will also find this, like me, to be a great opportunity to do all the reading that you always say you should be doing, but never have the time to actually sit and do. And having this external motivation out there to do it by the meeting is just a nice thing. All right. So yeah, thank you both, and thank you also to the people who have joined us and had to leave before. And thank you to everyone who is watching on the live stream. I hope you will tune in on the next times as well.
Thanks.